It is 7 o'clock. I will call to order this special meeting of the Waterbury Select Board on Monday, December 30th, 2024. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the agenda is approved as presented. Next is the consent agenda items, there being only 1 minute of the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda items.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Consent agenda is approved as presented. Next is a public session. Anyone wishing to address anything not on the warrant agenda, I would ask you to step forward and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'll be happy to put anything needed on an ensuing agenda.
Just briefly, I just want to say, on behalf of the town of Waterbury, to recognize, the passing of Jimmy Carter, our 39th president, and people have different opinions of him, but his probably career post being a president, actually probably one of the presidents that was actually probably a better human being and person and citizen post his presidency than when he was president. So may he rest in peace. And on the 9th, I guess they're having a day of remembrance. Everyone think of Jimmy Carter.
Thank you, Mike. You're here. Any other public comment?
I will add. that
Kate,
Jimmy Carter did found Habitat for Humanity.
he did not.
Oh, he did fine. He was
He's big part
very
of,
influential.
and if you are feeling that you're in like giving or buying, you didn't happen to have a Habitat for Humanity store. You can get a market.
Good point.
I'm going online to donate to Central Vermont.
All right. Now it is. Have some action. Anything else on the public agenda? All right, we'll move forward. Budget discussion. First up is the library. Rachel, can you come forward?
You've seen the library budget. It's very simple this year. We're not doing anything complicated at all. As Tom noted in his budget notes that you received earlier, the only major change, not really a change, is that we'll be going back to a $30,000 contribution from the library's trust as opposed to the $45,000 contribution that occurred last year. Other than that, unless Tom wants to point out anything in particular.
Not a whole lot of that. One thing I just want to note at the very bottom is the debt has ends in 2035, so that'll be there a while, just steadily go down. The other piece about the trust I just want to note is there's the trust which is invested in. I think the balance of that is 700,000 or so. And then there's some small and sporadic donations that come into the town during the course of the year. So at the end of the year, when we true up the trust, we first subtract out those donations we've had, which we essentially just keep during the course of the year. And then the balance comes to the town, and those trusts were just set up by people who I think when they pass the decrease in assets to the library and the beneficiaries.
Only other change, we do have one employee whose hours are going to increase from 37.5 to 40, so that shifts the pay line just a little bit, but not too dramatically. Any questions first?
Mike.
Just one quick question. I see the which I think is great that you have a line item for commissioner training. Is there anything specific that you have planned for commissioner training, or is this like, you know, something that each one may request something, because that's not a lot of money.
It's not a lot of money. There's nothing specific. What I'd encourage is if I could get a commissioner to attend the Vermont Library Association conference, which many of the staff go to. There's always sessions specific for commissioners there. It's a great way to meet other library trustees from around the state, learn a little bit more about what they're doing. So hopefully I'll get somebody to join us at that conference. And that's a 1-day conference in Killington, so it doesn't cost a lot. So that's probably enough to send a couple of commissioners to that.
Great, I think that'd be a great idea.
And then one thing and I've said this to the library trustees for a while now. I think of a trust, that normally you have a trust, for a few reasons. You might have it for financial stability. They might think in terms of preserving the trust in the event the town decided not to contribute as much to the library. The librarians, sorry, the library board members don't set the budget, just like the voters do, but they set the amount the trust is used. So my understanding is they have legal authority during the course of the year if they want to tap into the trust and do something. But I also think of a trust in very long-term ideas and big ideas. And I think of it as if you've got 700 land and you've got something major, even if it's 10 years away, you think about preserving it to make a down payment towards that. There's nothing major on the horizon. You've got a new building. But I always tell, every so often I tell the commissioners that you've got something major, even if it's sort of an audacious thing that's on the horizon 10 years from now. You've got a vehicle to you know, you've got some mechanism to work towards that on day one.
Of your, oh, you still have a lot of books, but how much of your whole business is digital versus hands-on books?
Actually, I was looking at that and I was putting together statistics for the end of the year. Approximately 1/3 of our circulation is digital as opposed to physical. 2/3 are still physical, and I'd say that 1/3 is almost entirely adult and teen users. Youth books are still what people want for kids, and the physical books. And our numbers, I can't bring all of my statistics, but we circulate close to 3,500 items in a month. So 1/3 of that 3,500 at least. So it's a pretty high number. We do a pretty high circulation for such a small community.
Yeah, the reason why I asked, I know I, go over the warrants a lot. I still say a lot of book purchases.
There's a lot of book purchases. Interestingly, I would say what I'm seeing as a trend is the digital number keeps growing, but the physical number does not drop off. So if anything, I was actually just looking at some numbers for next year, and I am going to have to find a way to put some more funding into the digital line, but still buy hopefully close to as many books as I've bought in the past.
Rachel, when we were having the hearings about the shelter, emergency shelter, there was concern expressed about the impact on the library. But I'm wondering if you've noticed any effect now that there are people
I
there.
actually would say we feel very good about the shelter. We've been doing outreach visits there once a month. We've got people signed up for library cards as Waterbury residents because they're living in Waterbury. While they're there. We've done impromptu story times with the kids at the shelter. So I think that it's been working really well. We do see those folks in the library and use the library just like any other patrons. So far, so good.
And no budgetary impact that you can think of?
My only budgetary impact would be along the lines of those outreach visits. Increasingly, we're trying to get my staff out in the community more and more. So we do a once-a-month pop-up library at the senior center. We do once-a-month visits to the shelter, regular book deliveries. I am seeing that increase a little bit. So that's funding that kind of comes out of some of our other programming money, but nothing too dramatic yet.
Okay, thanks. Ian?
I was just curious, the professional development line item, what your
Plans are for professional development.
Yep, that's very similar to with the commissioners. That's primarily to get all my staff, as many of my staff as are able and willing to go to the Vermont Library Association conference. Yeah, if I do the staff member, we see can that, and they see the funding for the Friends of the Library, which is another opportunity for us to do some funding, definitely able to find something outside of our budget. But that's my big goal. That conference is just a great opportunity for us to interact with librarians from all over the state.
A little curious about just professional development for librarians and for libraries.
Yes. It's we the great thing about it, a lot of workshops and webinars available for free, including an annual directors summit that I go to. And my library consortium that we're members of, the Catamount Library Network, does a lot of things like cataloging training, regular meetings on cataloging, all as part of our membership in that consortium. So we actually are able to get access to a lot of professional development without costs associated with that. But it's great to get together in person with location, or get to a real conference, get to see what's going on at the library. So.
Rachel, can you refresh our memory about the contribution from Duxbury and how you arrived at the 3,500?
Yes, it's fantastic. I'm really happy that Duxbury's kind of back on board after years of not having contribution. The number simply came from my taking the number of Duxbury residents who had library cards at the library, doing that math as to what we would have charged them as non-resident card holders, and presenting that almost like a bill to the town of Duxbury, saying this many folks. We rounded it up to 3,500. We're going to seek a little bit more this year because totally as expected, once Duxbury residents could get library cards here without jumping to the police of having in Duxbury users. So this is really lovely to see. I'm really happy to have Duxbury back on board. I will be attending Duxbury's Have Your Say Day with information about the library to tell them a little bit about what's going on, get people signed up for library cards, and again, make the pitch for tax funding instead of reimbursing residents for their library cards. Makes life a lot easier for everybody.
And is Waterbury the only town with whom they have this arrangement?
Yes, we really are Duxbury's library, whereas with Bolton, we kind of split with Richmond. With Duxbury, they come to us.
And with Bolton, you just charge people individually as a
Bolton, we
non-resident?
charge the individuals individually, and as I understand it, the town clerk there will reimburse them for the cost of their library card because they don't have a library within Bolton. So that's what Duxbury had been doing up until last year. They gave us the contribution for the first time in years.
And how about Moortown? Was it for Moortown, North Moortown?
So if they want a library card here, they'd have to pay as non-residents. Same with Middlesex and there are all the other towns that do have their own libraries that they. You can see a lot of them around.
I would think so. I mean, you've got the Moortown uses our postal system. It's virtually part of Waterbury, but
Yeah.
you know, that's why I asked. Mike,
What's the cost of a library?
It's just $25 a year, so that's a great deal. That's less than one hardcover book. So yeah, you get a lot with that.
Thank you.
other questions? Any costs anticipated coming up in the coming years that you're have in mind?
Nothing major right now. As Tom was saying, we're always talking about big ideas, thinking about big ideas. A big thing we added last year was the children's garden, but we were able to do that with mostly donations of lumber for the garden, raised beds, soil was donated. So we're very lucky that we've been able to find donations for some of our kind of more interesting projects that we've been doing. So you're gonna definitely see that expand in the coming year. One of my big goals is to find a way to carve out some dedicated space for teens in our library because we don't have a YA or a teen space. So we're spending a lot of time looking at the space and seeing where we can squeeze in a corner for teens.
How much is the doll room used? I mean, could that, is that?
It's booked pretty constantly.
So you couldn't cut that off
Yeah,
as sort of like a
Wednesday
team
nights.
room?
We set it aside for teams on Wednesday nights, so they get to use that space. But, it's in great demand. I wish we had more rooms all the time. Our rooms are always booked, yeah.
Anything else? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Step, we have planning and zoning.
Yep, I didn't ask Mike and Neil to be here.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a pretty, no major changes in the budget. We took in actually a lot of planning fees this December, but I still think, you know, probably 3 or 4 going in the past week alone, but I still think that the 2025 number of lowering that revenue expectation makes sense. Does feel like development activity, hit a bit of a lull in 2024, and maybe it's coming back a little bit now. We did put in $30,000, assuming we're gonna get municipal planning grant, but the note is that, I think we're in a good position to be awarded the grant, but I also think that staff on the planning commission need some consulting help on the town plan, so if we don't get that grant, I think it should be an automatic just use of the LOT to get us there. I think it's gonna be necessary. A little bit of extra pay in there, and I just want to note, couple things going on. One is the DRB hasn't had minute taker for a while, and so there's a little bit of extra pay in there. Staff that take minutes typically get an $80 stipend. And I think that is any administrator to do that work, and if he doesn't, then we will hire a consultant to do that. And the other is on the PC side, little extra pay, mostly because the PC met an awful lot last year to get the bylaws done, and I gave the staff person there some extra pay because I thought that was well earned based on that work, and I think that trend is gonna continue.
As they prepare for the town plan.
And I just want to make sure that's recognized. Moving down a little further, nothing major. There's always going to be a reasonably healthy budget for legal fees. We had more in 2024. We anticipated a bit more going on with bylaws and some other things. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So we hedged our bets there and didn't spend it, which was great. And then the software is at this point beyond the expense. But overall, nothing dramatic. We are up from 2024, but down from prior to 2022 and 2023. Planning and zoning budget tends to be a little bit bumpy just because there's always grants moving in and out. And the bylaw grant, not the bylaw. The grant for the town plan, we haven't applied for yet, but the grant application portal just opened. So we'll get that in well before we get it for. And I know even beyond that, I think the PC is substantially written an RFP for a consultant.
Should we get Martha? Invite Martha to comment on this? Come up.
Well, we've got the next item, the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I haven't seen the budget, so I don't even know what's in there. Yeah, I didn't, continue that, but, I don't really need to, because doesn't change my story. To his up and down comment, you know, for sure, we've met a lot trying to get phase one of the updated bylaws. We're through that. Now we're in the midst of meeting the state requirement for the town plan update. We're not even gonna catch our breath when we need to go back to phase 2 of the bylaws. So, I've advocated to Tom, I already have, it's all written. It goes in on January 10th for the municipal planning grant, which is a 30,000 cap. And I brought it just sort of for effect, but this is the town plan, it's a 200-page document. So, we're all volunteers on there, it's not reasonable to ask Neil to be doing it, and it's literally an editing function.
Mhm.
So the grant for the municipal planning grant will help us with pulling much of it together. But I really feel there's gonna be an administrative editing, writing. This is, the last time this was done was 2013, it was updated in 2018, but that was really to add the energy plan and meet the current requirements then. Now we have a whole nother set of new state requirements to meet. So it's really, it's not just a glossing over update. We've done a town survey, which, I'll tell you, we're really fortunate to have the talent that's on the planning commission. We have one GIS expert, we have a planning expert, we have, Robbie is another technical expert. He did the survey. He basically ran it for us. He got it edited and, scripted correctly. And so, but we're all volunteers and we all have full-time jobs, I guess, except Billy. So pulling this town plan document together is gonna be a massive lift. And while we'll put in for the planning grant, municipal planning grant, for a lot of the outreach and bringing it together, it still has to be written and compiled. And so we will put in for the modernization grant next year in 26. But I don't want to get behind it because we're going to need the modernization grant to also do phase 2. So if there's any extra. We appreciate the external expertise, quite frankly.
Mhm. For writing. Questions for Marcus?
What is professional service?
You have
That's,
to direct the budget items to him.
that's. We put in some money this year, we really haven't had much before, but that's consulting services. We generally use a firm called the SC Group, that we use them again throughout the year.
Yeah, that's who we use for the bylaw update phase 1.
In the rec
We
service?
expect, yeah, our proposal is actually a request for qualifications. And I'll be honest, I don't expect it to be too many responses other than SE Group. We will put it out publicly, but they're sort of the extremely qualified showing.
Because I see it was way up last year and the request was way down, even compared to what.
Last year there was some extra funding, but then, that would go above and beyond on the bylaws.
Yeah.
So will there be less need for public input on this phase of the update on the town plan?
Oh, no, I don't know. We've sort of gone through, there's a couple of phases. We have an assessment, a data gathering phase of what we sent out emails to all of the, what I call experts. We hit Joe for the housing, we've hit the historical society, we've hit every, the conservation commission, every committee or Duncan for the energy plan, for any chapter, we hit whatever resources we've had, including the Central Vermont Regional Planning. And brought in and asked them to, one, look at the current chapter that their expertise falls under. We also have to do a new chapter for flood resiliency, but look at the chapters that are there, provide comments, provide updated data that you may have in your world of expertise. We've gotten some energy data from Central Vermont Regional Planning, but they're still putting things together. So we've gone through this data assessment stage. Community survey goes into that data collection phase. And now we're gonna moving into a visioning. Section, if you will. And then eventually, so we'll want SE Group to help us with that outreach. And we'll again have sort of a community open house like we did before, not the hike around, but we'll probably use easels and get, Post-it notes and get your ideas. And then we can whittle that down to identifying what the community's goals are. So we'll have goals and actions that would come out that support the goals that the community is eventually looking to achieve over the next 8 years. It's an 8-year document.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I wanted to commend you for putting in all the hard work in getting phase 1 done, and it sounds as though you're preparing for another tremendous effort.
Trying, we really do need the outside expert, staffing time, I think. It keeps the momentum moving forward too. One of the parts of the next phase is we're asking experts again, to come in and talk to us, tell us about this, like the Historical Society said, yeah, we want to make some comments on it. I thought the history's history. And they want to come and see us, and we want them to come and see us and tell us what. So that applies to each of those areas of expertise.
And on flood resilience, have you gotten some feedback from crew and/or?
Well, we haven't gotten it in, so, and I want to be upfront here, we each have our chapters, and I think Dana's got flood resiliency. Robin's got demographics and local government, I have, and recreation, I have natural resources and the Historical Society. So we each have our areas that we're sort of championing or leading. So. The flood resiliency is a chapter that actually I think will probably lean on SE Group quite a bit. Because they give us what else is going on in the state. Excuse me, what other entities or what other towns are doing, if it's applicable.
Other questions?
This one's directed at Tom. Looking at this, by line, and we have a 20.6% change in color. I'm not sure if that's like. What exactly is that line item?
That's just based on the actuals, yeah. Yeah, we get a bill and it's distributed across kind of all departments and.
Okay.
You try to look at the actuals. I'm not gonna tell you, I know exactly the formula. That's actually, you're sure,
I was just wondering if it was like our telephone plan or what.
no, I'm actually working on, starting to work on a new telephone system for the town overall. So no things that cost us money, I think will save money. But it's a combination of plans and then some employees get stipends and sorts for cell phone use.
Chris,
The timeline on the update from town plan 8 years ago, is that what the cycle is?
The town plan is supposed to be reviewed by every year.
How do you feel about that? And short timeline,
No,
too long, or just right?
I guess it's
Seems
right,
like-
I mean, it's a lot of work that goes into it, right? So we were doing, so the 2013 plan was updated, and then they changed the rules, the law. Back in 2024 that required the enhanced energy plan, which was a whole other creation, very new exercise, and so that took a time, and we updated in 2018. There was also a survey done in 2017 to support that, so that's 5 years, 4 years, 5 years.
I guess that's my point, from a relevant standpoint, you think it's timely or?
I think this one is very time. If the stuff that's in the town plan now really needs to be updated. There's definitely, that's a good point. Whether you could pull it off and update it more frequently.
What's fine.
Yeah, it's hard.
It seemed like 5 years, it's like, just got done.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just wondering, as things evolve, if 8 years is still too short of a timeline for upgrading it, or for 10 years, but still keep it relevant, you know what I mean?
I think 10 would probably be too long. It just because of things that have gone on, look at it, since Hurricane Irene, how much our town's changed, right? And that's old. So, but on the other hand, it just takes a lot of time. And if you want to keep the community engagement, which is really, I think, the most critical piece.
Plus you've got other things going on like zoning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, we were hiring staff in before the bylaw, right, wasn't it? We were going through staff interviews for Melissa knows that.
Mhm.
So there are other things. It's a good question.
Yeah, Alyssa,
I was just gonna say, to this point, we could update it sooner if we wanted to, but we.
Oh, sure.
So just to say, but like,
If you never get out from under.
right.
I always look to give yourself breathing room between updates if it stayed relevant.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that as you were saying it, is if you were to have some long range planning. If you keep some elements, like if you were to put on your long range plan to look at half of the chapters on a location basis, you know what I mean? On an ongoing basis, so you're not doing this whole monster of a thing at one time. No, that's a neat idea. You have to have some discipline and, a planning director is gonna have to drive the ship.
Gotta think yourself. This morning, turn around, you gotta do it again.
Yeah,
You've got that.
that's kind of what the feeling is right now.
Martha, can you just, like, if there's just. Were you just talking, is if just a couple of pieces may need to be upgraded, can we just do that versus do the whole plan?
That's sort of what we did in 2018.
Right.
And so, I wouldn't advocate for that. There's a number of things that, I think I can speak for the planning board members that, it's a new generation. Okay, this is based on, well, like the other thing we have to do is we're looking at the technical amendments for the bylaws that are still in place that have never been updated on current regulations. And so think about it, if you think about it, that scale, this is stale too. So, I think the planning commission has made a wise decision to look hard at each chapter because it has been over 10 years.
I still can't believe back in the day, the PC and DRB were one end. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, well, we had the town and the village with the village.
That good.
So am I.
other questions on the budget or for Martha? Here, go ahead.
Martha, just curious, have you looked at how often other towns are required to update their town plan?
It's a state statute.
Okay.
It's by statute that. So it's interesting. I am in an industry where I look at a lot of town plans for the work that I do. And, there's been a pretty significant, well, with the Home Act and the, Act 174 Renewable Energy Act, there's been a lot of updating going on since 2020, 22, 24. They're happening right now. I know a couple of towns that are voting on town meeting day this coming. 3 towns that are up, we're 250 towns. There's always people. entities up there.
Questions?
I have one for you. We're supposed to come in January on our schedule to update the select board on the town plan update. She does, okay.
I think it'd be great, and just to say, while we have a public, because later on our agenda, we have the messaging, we've kind of pushed up our town meeting budget scheduling, hence even here on our
Yeah.
bonus December meetings, to fit everything into that, we will have that primarily done by early January. So I actually think we might have at least later January is a really convenient time, and just recognizing the scope of work again that you've already done and will have looking out to the next year in terms of public outreach.
Yeah.
Again, speaking for myself, that makes a lot of sense, just to make sure we're all aware of what's going on.
January 20th.
We are meeting.
Yeah, I'll do it on the 20th. That was good.
All right, yeah.
And then don't go anywhere, the next one is
Oh, yeah, yeah,
conservation.
yeah, well, while we're there, we'll now move on to Conservation Commission.
So just by way of background, there was a email we received early December with the Conservation Commission. Requested some funding, it hasn't happened in a long time, I don't believe. It was essentially related to, and I'll probably butcher this, but a natural resources inventory. There was actually an email today or yesterday with Martha and Amy, who's the chair of the Conservation Commission, trying to clarify some of the requests. But I think that's still a bit of a dangling participle at this point, and part of it is just a challenge with the December schedule and trying to get these finalized early. From my perspective, the Conservation Commission as created as essentially reports to the Planning Commission, if you will. They work on behalf of the Planning Commission, and given the focus is the town plan, my perspective on the Conservation Commission's request is it should be vetted in that light, that if it's going to inform the town plan, that's a primary focus, then we should think about funding it at some level. I don't know if you want to add to that or elaborate or
Yeah, I think.
disagree.
That was a good summary. I think that, first and foremost, I'd like to really compliment the Conservation Commission for the amount of data that they have pulled together. Again, in my work, I use a lot of the publicly available environmental data. And so I'm pretty well versed on what's out there. And as I conveyed to both Tom and Amy, from a natural resource perspective, we Waterbury have been pretty fortunate in having the Agency of Natural Resources here before Irene, and Fish and Wildlife Department and the GIS department right here in Waterbury. And then the UVM Spatial Lab and UVM Natural Resources up there. And I don't know, you might be familiar with David Capen's work, but yeah, that's Waterbury's benefited from being sort of an easy study area. We have the Worcester Range, we have the Waterbury Reservoir, we have Green Mountains, so there's a lot of data in terms of natural resource inventory. Everybody likes to study the forest. It's a nice hike. What I don't think, and I haven't been able to connect with Amy on this, is the other charge of the Conservation Commission is the cultural resources. So that's a piece that goes into the town plan as well. But the town plan has, in fact, this is another reason I brought it, is you can just see the number of mapping. Actually, the energy compliance plan requires environmental mapping. We have historical mapping, and then we have land use mapping for future land use, forest management. And all of that would be very helpful to have the support and expertise of the Conservation Commission. So funding that's being requested for any of that mapping work is I think a huge benefit to the town. Success.
And it has $700 allocated.
And that's traditional.
Yeah, and it seems like $700 exactly gets spent every year.
It actually doesn't get spent. What happens is a little bit gets spent, but the voters. I don't know the year, but the voters some years ago created a conservation fund.
Mhm.
So whatever funds are appropriated to that line that are not spent go in the conservation fund.
Mhm.
Since the voters created that, there's always been a very small appropriation, so the conservation fund. As of today, has in the range of $4,000. Yeah. So that's available, that's fund balance that could be used. And in prior years, I know conversation with the Conservation Commission was. If you're not gonna use it, why do we appropriate anything? Because there were some years when nothing was spent, and in the last few years, it's really been, $100 here, $100 there.
Mhm.
So that $4,000 is available. I think we still have some time to vet this, but what I'd also say is, I don't wanna lean on this too much reflexively as an answer, but. When you have a fund balance in the local option tax fund and you have a 2025 budget that doesn't plan to spend it all. Even with it, we can accelerate the schedule, but if. There's a valid need to spend a little money on consulting help in a way that informs the town plan, there's a way to do that.
Mhm.
I also do wonder out loud that. The Conservation Commission has gotten more active in the past year.
Right.
It's great, and does that small base amount of 700 just need to be kicked up a little bit?
Mhm. Amy.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just want to get your input on this. We did get your request, I think it was around 30,000, for, a more complete study, inventory, if I'm not misspeaking, you can correct me. But wanted to get sort of, an update from you as to, what you saw as your needs and, how you are, contributing to the preparation of the town plan.
Yeah, so for both Tom and Martha, thank you. You guys did a good summary. In terms of, I'll start at the end, contributing to the town plan, we've reviewed chapter 6 as a group, which is the natural resources. We also are committing as a group to look at, I believe it's chapter 7, 8, and 11. With a lens, not all of it is as relevant to our group as others. So that work has started, and then we'll provide those insights back to the Planning Commission as well. To your point, the largest budget request is aimed at the mapping, and the mapping is broader. While it doesn't really strengthen the cultural, I shouldn't say it like that. I think the purpose wasn't, but I believe there's some positive outcomes that'll come from it as it relates to cultural information. But it was really focused around they call it upland, and then there's hydrology and natural communities, which those are terms that have been afforded to us from folks like Jens, folks like wetlands experts. So they're kind of just generalizing in these ways, but they all are aimed at really updating the maps, as Martha had said. And there are a lot of different data points out there. One of the things that we've quickly realized is that there are so many, and there's some that do not say the same thing. Some of them, as you interpret them, that gets a little tricky as well. So we saw it as an opportunity to bring a consultant in who does this work fully to help provide that level of baseline and statusing. And we've had, like Martha, I've got binders of whether it's CVRPC, the Winooski Riverbed. We're really trying to digest a lot that helps inform land use, I would say, is the primary output, and then also ultimately the habitat and natural communities and things of that nature, and ensuring that we continue the good work that's gone on so far. There are a couple other, I'll call them lesser expenses that were in there that are worth noting. Our board is flush, which is nice. We've got nine members and 9 seats. And we have interest in the group to also really put some energy towards education. We recognize that that really helps across the board as it relates to both awareness, but also in some cases we may need behavior changes. So we wanted to put some energy there. And then lastly, we did put in a line item recognizing that, for example, the municipal planning grant has a requirement, and not for this year, but it has a requirement in general that there's a 10% match that needs to be made in order to, if you were awarded that grant. And let's say in future years, if the a conservation commission in the town wanted to pursue that, we didn't have exactly that 10%, or it's very close, or it would deplete that fund. So we were requesting some monies, if available, to be deposited into that fund to further grow that and allow for perhaps future use.
This may be a little off topic, but I saw today that there's a Nature Conservancy grant that might be available to us, $100,000 in the Appalachian corridor, which Waterbury is a part. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that and see if that might be applicable to any of the things that you're looking at.
Yeah, that is on the list. It reinforced one of the items. We have not looked at that particular one in detail. I was just going to pull up and see how many we have that we were reviewing. I want to say there's at least 15, perhaps 20 that the team we've been looking at. And I know we, as a last follow-up meeting, I owe you that output. Yeah, it's at least that many. And Nature Conservancy is one. And then there's also an entity, just for your awareness, State Wildlife Grants. That's the funding administrator. They're within there. The group, when we met this past month, we're focusing on 3 of their grants to look at and pursue. One is a traditional conservation grant, one's habitat, and then another is a planning assistance grant specifically for conservation. And then lastly, I know Tom has been more recently aware of this, that Josh Lincoln, one of our members, is kind of taking point on a scope of work, one of which is looking at the UVM Leahy Institute. It not necessarily a grant in the way we've been talking about them, but more they have an opportunity. It's called, I believe it's environmental problem solving. And there's a professor that's been identified that is very interested in working with our town. They've been working with Bolton, but basically that allows us to, and Tom will be meeting with her in the coming week or so to learn more about it. But generally, it allows us to position a problem that we want pursued, and for the semester, so 15 weeks, I think it is for their semester, they would really be boots on the ground. They develop proposals, so whatever the scope of that is. And so we've been talking about some ideas there, and of course it's got to be manageable within a semester or within their coursework. But and they have what we believe is that we might be able to build a relationship so that another grant they have is called a capacity grant. That's where what we're specifically looking at is we have an opportunity to strengthen grant writing, if you will, in general in our area, in our commission, and perhaps across other municipal bodies in the town. That is an opportunity where they have up to, I believe it's $10,000, where either they have on staff or student support for that, and or will provide funding for building that skill set.
That's also at the UVM Leahy Institute.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Other questions for Amy or others, Mike?
Yeah, Amy, just as I thought, Martha brought up a good point, where like A&R and Fish and Wildlife all kind of love our area here in the Waterbury area. You know, plus we have the corridor here. Can we possibly get some of those entities be doing some of that research for us? This, yeah,
Well,
I want to try to save taxpayer money, so, you know, if.
I'm with you. Yeah, no, so aren't I. So I don't want to minimize this too much, but I'll say it this way. That consulting arm really, we have talked to them. There is a lot of data out there. To me, I'm going to simplify it and make it sound like they're puzzle pieces. There's a lot of puzzle pieces that need to be brought together in a cohesive and vetted and analyzed way, that disparate pieces are not coming, you know, that we don't have that skill set nor the bench strength in our house to be able to say, here's these X maps over time, here's these X analyses from water, and and then bring them all together and translate it into a thorough analysis, as well as management recommendations and action plans that are recommended. And so agencies that we've talked to a couple individuals that came in, wetland experts. We've talked to, of course, Arrowwood and others that is what they do. They do that desktop analysis. There is some field analysis, and that's highly recommended where possible. But that's how we're envisioning that is to leverage all that wonderful work, but make it say something that's helpful for us. Does that make sense?
So you have a pot with a lot of ingredients, but you need a chef to put it all together.
And there you go. That's what it is for us. Yeah,
I'd like to add on to that. So, I look at it from my work. Let's take the wetlands. Wetlands is a really good example. So the data in A&R on the A&R Atlas, for example, or the BioFinder, think about it as being 30 or 40,000 foot level data, right? They're screening it like landscape level. And I think that what Amy's really aiming for, and they pay particular attention to the state stuff, state lands.
Right.
Where I think it starts to get a little trickier is anything site specific. So, for example, I cannot submit an application to the Public Utility Commission and say, based upon A&R's map, there's not a problem, or there is a problem. I have to have site specific data, right? Almost down to the parcel level. I think that the hard part of that is, from a town perspective, is that's private property. So are we talking about, we have all of this publicly available data, which is stronger on public lands. And so we sort of have a bit of a data gap on the private parcels. And so taking the Shutesville corridor, if that's going through private, you think, you know, we can't hire consultants to go trouncing on people's private property. So it just has to be done with a level of consideration that the Conservation Commission, I think, is looking at very carefully. And I use Arrowwood. They're one of my consultants, quite frankly.
Right.
So, and they know where they can go and where they can't go. They know how to interpolate infrared data that's available publicly, that's on private land, and they'll say, they'll say, Martha, there's pretty strong indication that there's going to be a pretty significant wetland there. But unless I go onto the site, I don't know. Okay, so that's the hard part for what Amy's doing. And then on top of that, you have the department, you have the wetlands department, you have the riparian department, you have the floodplains, right? Ned Sandberg's a floodplain guy. So they're all in their own buckets. You've got Fish and Wildlife that wants to talk about the animals, but doesn't really talk about the wetlands.
And a lot of the groups don't speak together.
That's my point. So, you know, what her point is really well taken, I think. And so how to bring something together that's a tool that could be useful to the town is, I think, the challenge.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Alyssa?
Amy, I'm curious on the 30,000, is that really like the minimum viable amount you need? In terms of getting everything you would need, or is there kind of components that might be able to be used in terms of highest priority, even within that bucket?
Yeah, we have not gone out for requests for proposal yet, but what we have done is kind of talk to people the towns that have used services like this and said that that's probably on the above median range for us. Not to say that, as Martha had said, there's a lot of data that's already available, so it may not require that much effort. So I think there is some, room there. But again, we haven't gone out for the proposal yet. There's not, we've only found, I think I'd have to go back to my notes, but maybe 3 groups that locally can handle, that more comprehensive town four-walled assessment. We've had a couple individuals, but they wouldn't be able to get the work done within a cycle. So that does add, that's where you start to see those higher numbers because you have more than one resource coming at it at the same time.
Can I ask Martha a question?
Sure.
So then for Martha, if I'm hearing your assessment earlier, we have the 30,000 budgeted from the municipal planning grant, and I'm hearing strong advocacy that we need that funding resource regardless of whether it's grant funded or municipally funded for the town plan. Really?
Say that again?
We're assuming, air quote, we're getting the municipal planning grant, but whether we get the grant or not, we need the services, is what I heard from you. Is there a need for additional services? I felt like I heard additional advocacy from you around.
Yeah, when we
More
talked to,
consultant services.
we ran the proposal by SE Group. Because we worked with them before, and they were like, we can't do all that for $30,000. So we already have pared it way back to try to make it reasonable to the planning grant. So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of advocating for if there's additional funds.
And then for Tom, so besides the 30,000, do you have any other funding reflecting professional services intended for these 2 volunteer commitments? Again, recognizing we need some professional services just for staff.
Nothing significant. A big part of that is if we got a few more weeks to work on it, we might want to have a recommendation in there related to that. Especially the previous request, especially just giving the time to make seven and stuff into my tough.
Other questions, comments, Kate?
Tom, how much roughly estimated do we have unallocated from the LRT for 2025?
150. 25.
Maybe 2024.
At 100.
Other comments, questions? Martha's grabbing her books. Very good.
No, I'm here, I'm here, I'm happy to have this time with you, I appreciate how busy you guys are.
Yeah, well, we appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and same thing, it's trying to pull together quite a bit. This is a bit extraordinary because we've been trying to get the budget prepared by the end of this year so that we can get some more public input on it over the next month before it goes out to the warrant agenda. So I appreciate all the work that's going into this. Appreciate that there's more to be done. Thank you, Amy. All right, the WASI short-term loan request. That was brought before the EFUD loan committee this past week. And the committee, made the recommendation, that the, what's it called? No, it's not really a loan, it's a,
Line of credit.
line of credit, thank you. Line of credit, be approved, with some conditions. But ones that would fit, the needs of the WASI as we understand them. So as I understand, that's gonna be presented to, the, full board of, EFUD, when, Tom?
Perhaps the end of this week, but if not, the regular meeting is soon enough.
Okay, but in time for, WASI to, make the presentation, for that, grant that they received, federal grant. So my understanding is that they, no longer need, board action, select board action on this. Would you agree with that, Tom? Which frees up some time for us. That's what it's major headache.
So we need before next week, I heard the 6th was the date they needed, so I just want to
I'm
make
gonna
sure.
try to
Eve.
schedule a meeting for this week.
So unless there's more discussion on this, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Which is the draft front porch forum submission for heavier saga.
Bring that up here.
Let's draft something for our review.
I have to share, or I just do that, right?
If you share the bond, I can see it as the dog of doing it, that was.
So this is just something that I drew up today. So if the select board wants to use the extra time and edit this in real time, that's great.
I'll take the first paragraph.
Second paragraph of that time.
I don't see any mention of pies.
I was also gonna comment that. This was written in a very Tom fashion.
Right.
The town government recognizes. We can just say Waterbury.
That was my reaction. I think this is a policy brief, which is what we hire the municipal manager to provide, but for the FPS post. Can you hear us in the other room, Tom?
I welcome this to be shredded. I also just think it's gonna be really hard to get consensus about what's gonna happen here, so I think this is gonna be fun.
My one comment, Tom, was that it's written in a very Tom fashion.
Is it?
Where, you know, third paragraph is, instead of saying Waterbury recognizes and friendly, the town government recognizes.
And I said it was a bit like a policy brief, and that is what we hire you for.
Truth be told, I found it hard to write because you always have to get into the awkwardness of we need to have an in-person town meeting day to move to Australia down in the future, and it's rewrote those parts a few times because you don't want to make it seem like there's no town meeting this year, because there is.
Maybe you finished with that. It's like, yeah, town meeting will be held.
I cursor right here, Kane, so if you want to drive.
Well,
I also saw that you, there's no time, second paragraph for Monday the 13th.
Second. 7 p.m. right?
I have, from Lisa, the, briefing, from our friends in Duxbury on how they advertised it. And they use these newfangled things called different fonts and, different size fonts. Come join us, Citizens Have Your Say Day, January 13th, Crossing Brook Middle School. Starting with the time, and then some of the finer print down below. Which could be an addition.
Can you do that on complex one?
Can you
Fonts and sizes?
fonts and sizes?
No, I don't believe so.
No, they only do one font size.
Certainly do it on your own.
Okay,
We also could link to, I think we can do links and can have this as a post on the town web, like my gut reaction is one, thank you, Tom, for prepping this. I did do a thing of literally what, when and where, why, what else. And like, I think for the FBF post, it's really saying, hi, friends. Normally you would wait till the first Tuesday at 9 a.m. to weigh in, and we're doing this newfangled thing where you can weigh in on the town budget earlier. I literally wrote, what an opportunity to hear about the proposed 2025 Waterbury town budget and provide your input. When and where with the dates, why, and I think we could do a reworked version of this. I think having it on the town website with this detail, to me, the leading with town meeting might be complicated to start, is my initial reaction.
yeah, I also sort of pulling me in a different direction with that first paragraph.
I'll now name that editing by committee is the worst thing in the world. And, does anyone want to propose a strategy for rewrite? I'll say,
I think you
this
have to
word.
have something about the vittles being served, you know.
With pie, well, we're
Well,
inviting people to bring pie.
Well, it's not just
What
pie,
else?
it's whatever, it's a potluck, really,
Oh, okay,
so. It's not just,
it's not just
like Rotary is pie for breakfast, this could be, people could bring anything they want, if they wanna bring a casserole, they could bring it.
Well,
I think that's what Duxbury does, I think it's a whole bunch of.
I thought, well, you could very well be right, we had Lisa.
I've never been, well, Lisa, we remember.
She's our resident expert. She's been there.
Duxbury.
Talking pie for a while.
Yeah, I only one second.
Right,
I've heard of the place, it's over there. So.
Yeah.
She is here. Hi, Lisa. Thanks. for joining.
Lisa, yeah, we need you again.
do they have other
So-
things? Pie?
I think I might have forwarded you the new latest version from Duxbury that has having theirs on January 11th as well.
Yeah,
And it explains how they start at 8:30 with pie, the meeting begins at 9.
Right.
It's just pie. So they don't have, it's early in the morning, it's not a meal, it's not lunchtime, but they're usually done by about noon. They just ask people to bring pies. And so I've got pictures and like, there's fruit pies, there's quiches, it's mostly pie. And you need somebody that.
The person at the town fair from Duxbury said it's called it being a potluck.
Uh-huh.
That was the town clerk and, right, I mean, it's in the spirit of potluck where they don't assign certain people to bring certain pies. They just leave it wide open that everybody walking in just walks in carrying a pie and they put them all down on a table and then they see what they have. And the
Yeah.
Historical Society, somebody has to manage it. They have to have the plates and the forks and the napkins and the spatulas to cut it and trash, and they serve coffee. But it's not like it's an organized meal. It's just, there were 4 or 5 apple pies. There were several blueberry pies. There were a few pumpkin pies, but there were savory pies and, but it's just pie. It's not like a bigger meal than that. That's all it is.
Okay. I was gonna say, as someone who spent the better part of 15 years writing manifests. Wow, name of thing. Big letters. Dates and places. Official information. Fun information. Town meeting date and time, something about pies.
That looks pretty
So
good.
I think Jane is gonna do the
I
flyer.
think you're the main.
Can you make that in a digital format?
Could, yes, I could do that.
Is that an achievable ask?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay,
Tonight.
that'd be great. I'm volunteering to meet with Tom tomorrow or you to do little FPF posts. That's-
Yeah.
Are you working tomorrow? I don't know.
I am, I do have to go to the DMV or. It's a quick thing, it's simple, so.
I have to run to work at 12.
All right, so you got the flyer. Alyssa and I can work with Tom on the little editorial
Blurb.
on the blurb. We also, as Lisa has commented now a couple of times, we need some boots on the ground to help organize whatever shows up and get it organized with plates and that sort of thing. Anyone want to raise their hand for that?
Yeah.
Tom?
And I think
Let's see if
really,
anyone needs them. They were so good with things.
I think it's just a little bit of setup and we want to make sure we have plates and. We'll make sure we get the big coffee makers and two of those and.
We have all that stuff left over from breakfast.
Might have a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
but this is in a whole different setup over the
Right, I know, it's different.
the region. Okay. Tom, I'm gonna be able to get you a couple of volunteers if you need them. Just,
Yeah, I'm happy.
you may be busy.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else, any other action needed on this agenda item? All right, I think we're moving forward.
I was just telling Tom and stuff, but sure.
Yeah, that's right. Stop the share. All right. Lisa, just checking with you, anything else that you might need information wise, or advice, other advice you might have for us at this point?
Well, a couple things. I have a story that I have written that I am hoping to post soon. Didn't want it to get lost in the holiday shuffle. And I also wasn't 100% sure on the pie piece, so I didn't want to put pie information out there prematurely.
I think pies are official.
Yeah, that's like
Okay.
the one thing that we decided.
Okay. Are you gonna do that for both the Saturday and the Monday?
That is a
Gathering?
good-
I thought the 13th, the Saturday one is, the
That's
Monday
the
one
11th.
is no food.
Yeah, I don't know if we
No
can
one said
do,
no.
Well,
they allow food up there?
I don't know.
we could have leftover pie.
I think it's a safe bet to say Saturday, yes, pie. And then essentially Monday
Leftovers.
would almost just be like,
There won't be leftovers.
it's still have your say, but it's at the normal select board time.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
it's just at a different location.
Okay,
Yeah,
we will.
Pie at the Monday meeting.
One other thing I was thinking is that I know you're talking about this as a front porch forum thing, but it feels like you've got a powerful website of your own and this information should first and foremost live on the town website. And front porch forum could be just a friendly note that tells people about it and links to it so people can go there. But front porch forum is kind of a mess for people to even find anything on. So if it just shows up one day on front porch forum, people aren't going to know where it is or to go back to it. And I think if it needs to live on the town website so people could go to it and read it and download it or print it, especially if you're going to have a copy of the budget that people can look at to go with it. Maybe there's a PDF file of the draft budget that people can download and look at. And then this way we can refer to it there. And this way that takes the pressure off from Porch Forum being this big, gigantic thing. You could have the bulk of the information on the website. You can just tell people to go there. I'm also happy to print on the roundabout. You could do, Roger and Alyssa as the chair and the vice chair of the select board could have a column that says, here's what we're doing and why. And explain it, and take Tom's draft and kind of, massage that a little bit and add whatever else your own flair and voice to it. But it could be you two talking to the town saying, here's what we've come up with. This is what we're going to try, whatever. I'll just throw that out there. But I will take a stab at a story before the end of this week to go out in our Saturday newsletter that's saying what is to report on this to tell people that they should be ready for this the following weekend.
Then presumably we can take Kane's flyer and purchase ad space if we want to.
Whoa.
I don't, ad space in the round. Ads around the roundabout is quite affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or more importantly, print them and put them around town.
Yeah,
I would
I was
say
gonna
this is
say,
just like, if you want my candid is, I had been on vacation and taking actually some time off, but like to actually do outreach to get people to show up in 2 weeks, we're already, it should be a month ahead of time, but we had the holidays. I think we can do it. I think if we all actually want to turn out, like, honestly, I'll suggest individual phone calls or things we should do, individual emails and things like that. So again, today was my last day. So I'm happy to spend time working on this tomorrow, but I think passively, we're likely to get the same crew we normally get who show up because
Chris?
they are the well-informed folks and will be here. And so, and that's fine. To be clear, I think like this is a better and sooner outreach than we otherwise would have had. So I'm excited by that. But I think to bring it to the next level, it is about doing all of those different things. So,
So are you saying not to advertise in the roundabout?
oh no, I'm saying definitely
Oh,
advertising.
okay.
And for-
Okay, I'm with you.
yeah.
And since you, for example, Mike, are a phone call enthusiast, it's very easy to call people and say, hey, just wanted to remind you, we're doing this new thing and we'd love to see you there. And sometimes those are the things that get people to show up.
And
Yeah, but
I was
we're
gonna
already
suggest
used for
as
good
the
that
the town,
Okay.
I was gonna suggest as the town owns lamps that are currently igniting our streets, and as a musician who used to stick things to them to advertise my food shows, a little pack, David, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with a long way.
All right. I'm sure you're not advocating defacing our public lampposts, but
Oh,
I get your drift. Maybe you're talking about putting something up in the
Yes, just a.
picture window of the Bargain Boutique or
Yeah.
a place that a lot of people go to.
Sorry.
don't forget your Facebook page. Kane's flyer could be a beautiful image that is shared on Facebook that people could then share around. The town has multiple sites. It has a recreation website, a Facebook page, the town Facebook page. The schools also do newsletters every week. The principals send these out. They will be, I guess they'll be kind of close to when this happens next week because they won't be doing it. I guess they should be doing a newsletter this week because school's back in session on Thursday. You can email information to both the principals at both Crossabrook and Thatcherbrook Brookside. They have sections in their weekly newsletters that go to all the parents of all the children in those schools. Many of which are people who are Waterbury voters. And you could have that information there. They have like a community section in their newsletters that in addition to school information, they have community announcements and different groups like, you know, karate lessons, or there's a concert or something get put in those newsletters and people look at those.
Great suggestions. Hopefully the Legion is large enough to accommodate all the people that'll be showing up for the first Have Your Say Day in Waterbury.
How many people, Lisa, are at Duxbury's?
90.
90?
About 100. The first year, 2 years ago, they had about 120. Last year, it didn't crack 100.
But Waterbury's got twice the population.
Right, we have twice the population. And going, if you look at what our attendance is at town meeting day, I would think we're gonna have, I could see 150 people.
Which, you know, like to supply. Okay. And there have been other pieces of this with people with booths and our state legislators and so forth, but I don't know if we need to go whole hog. It feels like we might be able to just manage the meeting and the pie. And then see how successful that is before we go too crazy with this.
Next year.
Yeah. By popular demand.
And we are having town meetings, so for that, I think given the timing, we could do
Right.
tables at town meeting if we wanted to do that with a little more advanced planning time.
Right. Okay, anything else on this? Thank you, Lisa, appreciate your help. We'll be in touch. Next agenda item is the EcoPixel 2025 contract, and I believe in our packet, we have a copy of the proposed contract.
And this was something Karen sent to you, and she's been the primary website manager over the years.
Yeah.
And there's some, I think the initiative for which arose because we wanted to create a separate section of the website related to flood mitigation efforts, and as it turns out, that's hard to do. So we had some conversations with the EcoPixel vendors website about changing things, giving additional staff the ability to do their own updates too, for their sections of the websites, and then also the biggest part is making sure the meeting recording, there's an automated way for meetings to be recorded and posted to the website. Selectboard meetings are in compliance with the law provided ordinance here. But you're not here for quite every meeting, and then we've got reset issues and we've got other towns and meetings. And so having it easy to record the Zoom meeting for the PRB, for example, and just automatically be a section of the website is a big part of this.
The total price tag is $4,409.
Yeah, pretty expensive.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Is that in the proposed budget?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Is EcoPixel just a local Vermont company? Or are they part of a one?
I don't know how large they are, I know about from that country.
What's it?
I'm excited. I think this would be great. And I will say, on the housing task force, we're doing we got a grant to do a series of workshops.
Yeah.
And Cheryl Casey is helping with that as the project manager, and talked about doing some updating just of the housing task force website, but I think all of this type of thing. Being able to do it more broadly is really exciting, again, just in terms of having like one specific landing place for all of the materials. So if we need that, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the contract with EcoPixel for 2025 for the town of Waterbury.
Okay.
And authorize the municipal manager to sign.
Sorry.
Moved and seconded, further discussion.
Do the subscribers go through just us or through EcoPixel? Or do they have? Does EcoPixel have data from people using this?
People that log into that, go on our website now, and they do say.
Other questions? Ian.
Yeah, I likely can't answer this, Tom. ADA compliance doesn't mention what that is specifically. I did some research and about ADA compliance on websites today, but do you know if there's anything specific that needs to happen to our specific website or?
I do not, yeah, I do not. I've struggled to understand ADA compliant websites for some years now, yeah.
The VLCT one, their outreach specialists have been talking about this because it's a condition of like a lot of federal money we get, and you check it off, but it's, you know, there's that how your name is embedded and like just
things like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Alternative, you know, image descriptions, just like a million things.
Right.
Hopefully someone who does it all the time.
Yeah. particularly for people who are sight impaired, the specific requirements. If somebody understands all of those, so we can be in compliance.
Yeah, very worthwhile.
All right, moved, seconded, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Sum of $4,409 is approved for the Eco Pixel contract. All right. Next meeting agenda. This would be the 6th of January. I think that will be the time when I will be starting as executive director for revitalizing Waterbury. So I'd like to add an agenda item to reorganize the officers of the select board. So I will need to be stepping down as chair.
Sitting on breath.
Yes, whichever position I happen to be assuming at the time.
One and two, sorry.
Mhm.
Conservation, I'll just name like my census, need to budget some professional services money between the conservation and the planning commission,
Yeah.
or any other. I wonder about an agenda item that's like final budget,
Final, but
final draft budget review,
Yeah.
like recognizing we're gonna have, it going to the voters and, there might. I would hope nothing substantive, but if there's any of those things that we haven't caught earlier.
I agree. And I've been looking to invite or to put the Route 2 neighborhood concerns back on the budget. I have not heard back from Michelle Donnelly yet about soliciting victim impact statements and how they would best be identified. So I'd like to make sure that it's first before we put that back on the agenda. Other items, Tom, that you feel need to look at on the 6th?
I'm not sure the Wesley Church will be ready, but let's throw it on there.
Which one?
The Wesley Church MOU, let's put it on, give me a goal and get it done.
Will we have an update from downstream, like groundbreaking, where are they?
No, there is a closing scheduled for the 9th of January. And then groundbreaking, I don't have the exact date in front of me, but there's a groundbreaking event that works.
We could just put it on as an update.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. How about the natural disaster?
I am going to reach out to them. January 2nd, so I don't care if the next holiday.
Right.
My concern is that meetings were combined for November and December, which means I didn't have an official meeting to January, but there are 2 people working on this thing, and I'm hoping that in speaking to the chair, after we have whatever copy they have. Right.
That'd be great.
Hopefully, we all have a plan. I know that's what rushes. Trying to get something on the agenda.
Well, yes and no. Has been. I hope we have it in our hand before, like we have been.
Yeah. You and me both. I'll get my hands on a copy. We'll go for it.
Okay.
And not one minute.
Yes, we're doing on the 11th and 13th. Probably looking a little bit more directed, also.
As part of final draft budget review, I think. Have your day presentation review if we're going to do, recognizing like minor tweaks and numbers, but if we want to do it like, this is the PowerPoint, and does someone want to speak to each individual department? Or anything like that, and
Yeah.
to name Tom, you volunteer to do a lot of that, but I also think as the select board, it's important to have ownership and familiarity with how we're presenting this to the public. There will be pie, but still, we want to know what we're doing. So, man, a dry run, if you will.
I know it may be too soon, maybe it would be better for the meeting after. But I would like to hear from the manager of the armory as to kind of what's happening, just, you know, what they may need from us, you know, what their concerns are, et cetera. It'd be good to have a little feedback.
Yeah, let me check in on that.
You know, I know it's kind of quick to have it for next meeting, but maybe the next meeting after.
Yeah, well, we have, is it Monica, who's the liaison? Yeah. If you're just looking for that, I mean, that's sort of her role, as I understand it, is to act as a liaison. Okay, between the shelter and the community. So give us an update as to how things are going and whether we need anything from the community. It was interesting to hear from Rachel.
Yes.
that They are going down there and get library cards, et cetera.
Speaking of homelessness, is that camper that's parked on the, is that a homeless individual in there, or is that?
Or on the house.
I never see, you know, a light or anything, but I'm assuming it is.
I saw him there today, first time actually.
I stopped and he wasn't even there, so.
I have reorganized the officers, final draft, budget review, have your say presentation and run through, update on 51 South Main Street, was in church MOU if you have it, natural disaster preparedness if you have it. Armory updates if there's something selected.
Sounds like enough to me. Any other additions? All right. Let's move forward. Is there any need for an executive session tonight? We had a meeting, there's executive session at the last meeting. There was some further research that was going to be done, but I don't know if anything's ready at this point.
Second chair, if you know.
Separate section.
Okay, then we'll need a motion to go into executive session.
I moved to enter executive session for the purposes of personnel discussions and to invite the municipal manager to join the select board.
Second.
Moving seconded,
Who's taking it?
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We'll move into executive session.